So hello everyone today from quite blustery and cold Glasgow this morning on this Monday, which is the first day proper of COP26. And today we're waiting for the World Leaders Summit to kick off, which runs today and tomorrow. And the first thing to say, I guess, is I'm quite relieved to be here because you may have seen on the news there's been a lot of travel disruption for many of the delegates that have been making their way up to Glasgow, mainly due to heavy rain and fallen trees on the train tracks. So I did quite well to dodge some of that extreme weather. And we've seen that story of extreme weather, increasingly extreme unprecedented events coming through already in some of the speeches yesterday. So Alok Sharma, the COP president, did his introductory speech yesterday in which he talked about the increases in unprecedented extremes. And Patricia Espinosa, who's the head of the UNFCCC, the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, also gave a very stark warning about how humanity was running itself into extinction unless it takes urgent action now. So there were very strong words from both of the opening speeches yesterday. And we know that extreme weather is going to get worse, even with the climate change that is now inevitable. So we're waiting to see today from the World Leaders Summit what comes out of it. Nature is going to be high on the agenda, and we'll be bringing you that later today and tomorrow as well. But it's worth taking some time on this first day of COP to reflect how we've got here, and not just here in Glasgow on the journey here, but actually the climate change journey that a lot of us have been on and we've all been seeing play out over the last few decades. And of course, the threats from climate change are not a new story, so they go right back. The understanding of how human activity is altering the climate goes right back to the 1900s, really, and we know the science is very clear that burning of fossil fuels, human burning of fossil fuels right back from the 1800s and since then has been changing the climate, and we've seen over a degree of warming compared to what we call those pre-industrial levels from around 1750 onwards. And that link was recognised even in the 1900s, obviously into the 20th century. And we saw in 1992 the agreement to create this UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, the UNFCCC. And since then, since the UNFCCC was enacted, we've had 26 meetings to discuss that convention, which are what the COPs are. So this is why we're now at COP26. And we've seen some, as Craig was saying yesterday, some real steps forward at some of those COPs. And obviously the most recent famous one was the Paris COP back in 2015, COP21, where the Paris Agreement was signed that creates a legally binding commitment for countries to ramp up efforts to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions through what's called their nationally determined contributions. And I was reflecting on some of this on the train ride up yesterday because this is the first time I've been to a COP for about 15 years. So the last one I went to was back in 2005. And it was interesting looking out of the window of the train at the landscape rolling by and thinking how much it has changed over the last 15 years. You know, there are so many more wind turbines on the landscape now. You can see floodplain meadows, we can see efforts to rewild the landscape, but obviously we still need to transform our landscape. It's still in large parts intensive agriculture. And we've seen that with nature as well. So we've seen some real successes with nature conservation in the last 10 to 15 to 20 years. We've seen the fantastically successful reintroduction of red kites. We've seen beavers coming back, largely thanks to efforts of the Wildlife Trust. They've been reintroduced in many parts of the UK in enclosed spaces, and there's a consultation out at the moment about reintroducing beavers into the wild. There's been some fantastic success stories, but of course we know that the big picture is one still of decline, and the State of Nature report makes that very clear, that across the UK we've seen a decline in nature since the 1970s, and we know that around 15% of species across the UK are currently threatened with extinction. And we know that nature and climate are very closely interlinked, and we need to see nature being high on the agenda at this COP, alongside obviously the focus on ramping up country pledges to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions, because nature is fundamental to helping to address the climate crisis, and because nature can help us to adapt to climate change as well, whether that's through natural flood management, acting as a cooling mechanism in cities, or regulating water quality. So we'll be looking very closely at what comes out of the World Leaders Summit today and tomorrow to see what world leaders are saying about this connection between nature and climate and what they're pledging to do.
We all need nature, yet we've exploited our natural world and the climate to breaking point. Wild places are disappearing, half of UK wildlife is under threat, temperatures are rising and extreme weather events are on the increase. And as the nature and climate emergencies worsen, the threat to life on Earth escalates. But it doesn't have to be this way. We have the chance for a better and wilder future. We can create a world where people and wildlife thrive alongside each other. We must stop the burning of fossil fuels and reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. And we must also let nature help tackle climate change and adapt to its impacts by restoring and connecting up woods, salt marsh and peatland. Nature can store carbon, provide clean air and water, protect us from flooding and extreme weather, and provide the food we need to survive. The wildlife trusts have been working hard for decades to help nature recover, bringing back wildlife once lost from our sea and land. But we need you. We need to be bold. We need to take decisive action. And we need to work together. Every action, big or small, makes a difference in the battle against nature loss and climate change. It's not too late to solve this. Let's act now for a wilder future.
What we really want to see through this COP is pledges on three things. So we want to see the UK and global leaders pledging stronger action to make sure that we keep within the 1.5 degree global warming limit, and bear in mind that we're already at 1.1 degrees of warming. We want to make sure that nature is really at the heart of action on climate, both internationally at this COP, but also in domestic policy as well, and making sure we see that ambition, and not even so much the ambition, but the implementation, the actual action on the ground, to make sure that we're restoring nature at scale. And the 30 by 30 commitment to restore 30% of our land and sea by 2030 for nature is a really central key part of that. And thirdly, we need to see the finance to back that up. So we want to see very strong commitments at this COP to make sure that the finance is available, both the big ticket item at this COP, which is pledges from developed countries to provide finance for developing countries to both reduce their emissions and very importantly for them adapt to the inevitable impacts of climate change, but also finance and innovation to help implement nature-based solutions at scale so that they can play their role in tackling the climate crisis. So as we've said, we'll be bringing you updates every day from COP. So I'm standing by the River Clyde now on my way to the conference centre. Because it's the World Leaders Summit Day, we're not allowed into the negotiating area this morning, but we'll be back there this afternoon. And we'll be heading over to the Green Zone as well to do a bit of media and a few interviews. So do watch out for those as well. But very importantly, our big ticket item, we've got a very special Wild Live event happening this Sunday, and the sign-up details are on your screen now, so please do go and sign up for that if you haven't already. We'll be joined by a really fantastic panel of guests to talk us through what's happening at COP, what their views on the importance of nature-based solutions are, and what we might see going forward as well. So please do sign up for that if you haven't already. And do just keep in touch with us on social media, and do tell us what you think as well. Do keep posting your comments and sending us messages on your take from what we're telling you and what's on the news as well as to what's happening at COP26. And we look forward to bringing you more tomorrow.